All right, we have a topic that is a little bit deep tonight, but it's Friday night. What the hell? And it's also the summer where people don't expect to go to summer school, but we're going to, and we're going to take a look at something a little deeper because you know what? The readings are not always about just, your stuff and like your troubles and your whatever. It's about the collective. you know why are we here? What's going on with all this? Why did we even incarnate at this time in history and all this stuff? It's not all about escaping things. Sometimes it's about the deep dive, and you get to dive in and you get to see what that is, and you get to contribute to the akashic records when you cycle off. And that's basically why we're here. um But, a lot of times people get readings and they're just involved in the microcosm of whatever it is that they're experiencing. And, then every once in a while I get clients or friends that ask me the deeper questions, that ask me the questions about, you know, why are we here? Why did we experience a bunch of these things? Is why is this the way that it is? And and then the questions are coming up. What does sentient mean? What does ensouled mean? What is the consciousness, the collective? Why are we interacting with each other? Do we see what we do in another dimension? Do we see, and then there's talk about, I have other people asking me about aliens and that kind of thing. We'll dive into that on another one. But right now, this is Psychic Carla Barron. I'm also a medium. I do channeling. Somebody asked me that question earlier, somebody close to me, and I didn't answer the question, so I'm going to answer it right now. What is channeling? And like, if I channel for someone, do I get permission to do so? Of course you do, or otherwise you wouldn't be given the answer. You wouldn't be given any credible or authentic information or data. You must, sometimes you don't have to formally ask for permission. You kind of know when the information is just flying at you that you've gotten permission to channel, to go in there and see what the spirit guides are willing to part with as far as information and as far as furthering you along with enlightenment. If I go in and I only get partial information, that means that if I knew the entire thing, it would actually obstruct the lesson that soul listening, or the souls listening or participating in, would learn or assimilate. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to go in and they have to come back and do that lesson again, all because you ruined it for them by the spoilers, and you told them all the information before they were able to see it for themselves. And yeah, you see it from your own perspective. Each one of you that's listening right now, you see this life from your prism, from your viewfinder. You see it the way that you understand it, and that's going to be your contribution when you continue on to the other side. That's going to be the thing that you contribute, is the way that you saw it, the way that you felt it, the way that you perceived it. That's why you're here, to give your angle on it. Like you're an investigative reporter, and you're here in this lifetime giving your view on the events that are transpiring. And that's what's going on there. So when I got asked that question, do I get permission? That's how I know. If I get zero information, that happens every once in a while. I'll get nothing. I'll get zero information, and there will be no, um, you know, existential crisis going on. It's just that I get no information about it. So, do I get permission to go into channeled information for that particular person asking? The only time I don't is if it doesn't fall within the purview of their need to know. If I have a client, let's say they're asking about, and I've had this happen, okay? I've had a client ask about their son's love life and who he's having sex with. And, they need to know because they're going out of their minds with some sort of like nervous breakdown. And I'm like, look, that doesn't qualify you to actually know. And so then I don't get to channel that information. Or if it's somebody on the other side where it's, let's say it's a celebrity or something, and they had a huge crush on that celebrity. I had somebody that was reading about Michael Jackson, and they were so enamored with Michael Jackson, and they were asking all these very intimate questions about him. And I said, look, I said, it's all well and good that you loved him the way that you did in such an intimate way. But there are rules to this. I can't just go in and we can't be like peeping Toms and peeping Thomasinas, going in and just answering any question that you ask all because you paid for a reading. I mean, it's not the way it works, guys. And I'll be deliberately roadblocked at that point. I won't be allowed into that sector to view that information. I won't even be allowed in there. So sometimes I just, I try not to laugh at them when they ask me. I try to handle that information in a delicate manner. But I've had people ask me questions that they have no business asking, but they're asking because they're curious or because they can't help themselves or because, they don't want to look at their own lives. So I try to steer it in a way where, okay, let's bring it back to what you need to know and why you need to know it. And as far as the channeling information and do you get to know everything that you ask? Yes, if it's on your path and you have an agreement to know that particular piece of information, yes. But otherwise, I have to do it in such a way where I lead you on your own search, your own quest to find out the answer to that information. And I'm very good at that. I'm very good at leading you to your own quest, your own path. I have a skill with that. I don't know why, but I was blessed with that gift. So I try to do that with every client that asks me things where I don't particularly get the green light to go ahead and say, okay, you get to know this. But if you find out for yourself, I can help you decipher it. I can help you decode whatever it is that you find. And so it leads them on a different quest. It gives them a purpose. Inside that framework, it gives them a reason for why they're asking in the first place. And you know what? That seems to satisfy. Because I think most of the time when people ask me questions where they're on a need to know and they feel rejected when I tell them, no, you don't get to know that. But when I give them a purpose with it and they get to know why they were even asking in the first place, why it was so important that they knew that information about somebody else, then they calm down and it seems to be okay then. But let's get back to the topic here, which is sentient versus ensouled. Okay. I have done quite a bit of research with this myself, not only through the readings, but just, everything that I have read, every psychic, intuitive, channeler, people all over the world that do this, people that don't seek attention really are the ones that I learned the most from. The ones that were hidden behind the framework, the ones that were driving the vehicle, they were very humble and living intuitive type lives where it was not important that everyone in the world knew who they were, or even thousands of people. Only the people that happened to cross their paths were the ones that they were concerned with. They were more concerned or entangled in the enlightenment process and enlightening those with some sort of beacon where souls were drawn to them for the information, and they were okay with that because that's what they signed on for, to be a beacon, to be a virtual library of information. If someone searched it out, if someone was on a quest, they would be presented within that path for that person, for that soul, so that that soul could learn whatever it was that they needed to assimilate or absorb. So I have come across a lot of these people where they're almost like hermits, they hide in the shadows, but they don't do shadow work. They hide in the shadows collecting data or keeping their ear to the ground with the universal vibration, staying in alignment with what's going on right now, how to get collective consciousness in a place where we can reshape this so we're not in so much trouble as we are right now. I mean, we're in a little bit of trouble right now, guys. It's not all unicorns and rainbows out there. A lot of things are happening where souls are cycling off on their first exits that they planned because they have to come back and fix what we broke. That's basically the message that I've been picking up. And when I tune into collective consciousness, the message that I get is that we broke a lot of things with our egos, with our our innate sense of control. We have to control everything. And we neglected, the blood work, the nervous system within inside the collective consciousness where we held everything together with proper alignment, where we disrupted the balance there enough that a lot of things got broken, and a lot of people, a lot of souls went to a darker side and they took control because control was the end game. Control was the thing that those souls needed to attain. And we fell asleep at the wheel, guys. That's what happened. So if you're wondering why you're still here, why you're stuck, why you don't really know. You had an original plan, but then that plan got switched to plan B, and you're trying to figure out, how do I pick up the pieces around me, the shards that are laying around me? How do I do that and actually create another sense of wholeness and enlightenment? And how do I use what happened to me and become that beacon, those beacons that I search out, and it's a beautiful thing when I find these people, like one of the psychics that gave me my crystal, my aquamarine crystal that I work with here. It's always pointed at me while I'm doing readings. It's pointed at me right now. Um, and I use it every day. I used it on my radio show first when I did my radio show, my national radio show, like years ago. And she was, doing work with me, and we would sit every night in her house. She lives, uh, about 5 miles away. And I would go there, and we would go to Trader Joe's, and we would get cookies and have tea, and we would channel all night. And she was the note taker. She would take hundreds of pages of notes of what we channeled. And her name was Sharon. And she, in the meantime, she got a job where she lives in Ireland, and an insurance company hired her full time to do this type of work for their company. So in Europe, it's a whole different thing. It's not like the United States where this is frowned upon. But she went there and she got a full time job. Her home was paid. All expenses were paid for her to relocate and to do her work on behalf of this company. And it wasn't just for money, it was to make sure that everyone in the collective within inside that insurance company was aligned, and everybody was balanced, and people were happy working there, and they felt a purpose. And if there was anything out of alignment, that she would point them directly to it. And so that's what she ended up doing when she moved away. And you know what? We have not kept in touch since, but I knew what her purpose in my life was at that point. And I wasn't doing this full time yet, but I remembered a few things during our channeling sessions. And I was doing this radio show, and I remembered what she said to me about what my purpose was, because she was given that information. And I stopped looking to be famous. I stopped trying to like put myself out there as this next big thing, right? And the second I sort of got it, the second I got that, then everything changed. My entire life changed. I did this full time, and I was never happier to wake up doing this full time. And I remembered, talking about animals and sentient beings. Like one time it was raining really hard, and like it does here in Los Angeles, it'll rain for like 3, 4, 5 days in a row, and it won't rain for any other time during the year except for those times. And it was flooding, and we were at her house, and she had ants that were crawling on her sink. And instead of doing what I normally do, which is kill all of them and crush them and flush them or whatever, she collected all of them on a piece of paper and led them outside and let them go. And she said they'll go away and they'll find another home. And it was just her energy. It sort of was very magnetic, and I I just looked at things differently once I was around her energy, around her teachings, and what she was older than me, maybe by 20 years, and I remembered her just saying these profound things to me. And we would channel all night. I mean, it'd be like 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And nobody was getting paid. We didn't care. We were on a quest for information for as much as we could absorb together as a unit. And it was, we fed ourselves tea and, whatever cookies that she got from Trader Joe's for that particular night. And we got to work. And I'm telling you, at the end of this, it was a year that this went on, and a year or so. And at the end of the year, she had collected about 1,000 pages of channeled information that she let me be the channeler, and she would check my information, is how this worked. And I said, well, why am I the one? Why aren't you doing this too? She said, because I was told that you would be the main conduit through which this information would come. And I said, okay. And I felt a little uneasy about that whole thing being the main one, because she was older. She was an elder. She was an elder that I needed to respect, because of her wisdom. And she said, because the way you're going to see it, this is what she said to me, and I never forgot it. She said, because the way you're going to see it is the way that people will be drawn to. This is how they will actually understand it. This is how it will filter to them in a way that they can utilize it. She said, when I see things, sometimes it's too complicated and they don't understand they don't have the tools. They don't have the tools to take that information and actually use it to implement in such a way to make that actually work in today's world. But you have a grasp, she said, on taking the channeled information and actually applying it to something very current. And that is necessary at this time in history. And I said, okay. So, we stayed up all night doing this. There was no end game. There was no real reason for why we were doing it, but we both couldn't stop once we started. And then at the end of her journey here, she was moving to Ireland and she went to Sedona, Arizona. And she actually chose this crystal for me. It was aquamarine. It's a fairly large crystal. And she gave it to me in a satin bag. And she said, this is for you. And it is charged with what you need. When you need to recharge it, just put it in the moonlight, in the full moon, and wash it in Himalayan pink salt in a salt bath, and then rinse it off, and then put it in the moonlight. And it will recharge whenever you need it to recharge, when you're feeling like the information isn't as strong. So I've done that a few times, and it's kind of weird. It worked. And I don't let anyone hold it. I don't let anyone touch it. It was my energy that was configured into this crystal from the beginning. And that's the way it is. I don't let other people hold those. So I only have the one. I know a lot of psychics and mediums, they have, an array of crystals, like every known crystal under the sun. But I just have the one, and this one worked. And I said, well, why did you choose this one? Why this color? Because it's so unusual, the color. It's such a pretty blue. And she said, because your eyes are this color to me. And your eyes are the ones that are being used as the filter for this information, for this new quest you're on. And she said, I can't tell you what the quest is because you will know soon enough. And at that time, I wasn't even doing this full time. I was only doing my radio show. And there was no, transition to full time with this. It was just something I knew I needed to do. And then I woke up one day and I said, you know what? I need to do this all the time, every day, because this is how this makes me feel to do this. So I thought I would tell that story when I'm talking about sentient versus ensouled. Now, from my readings, from what I know, my earlier readings would indicate, when I would read through manuscripts and various books and various channeled messages, ensouled species are humans on this planet, and whales and dolphins, those three groups. Now, people are saying, well, my dog has a soul or my cat has a soul. I know it does. And the thing is, it does, but it's part of a large soul. It's a different kind of ensouled species. It's a part of a soul. They are sentient beings. They are aware. They can learn. They can assimilate lessons. They can, it's a living organism. It's a living being on this planet, and it can fit within the matrix or the framework of that electrical grid that's here on this earth, that energy grid. But animals and insects like bees and other higher higher functioning insects that work within our planet to create life and to sustain life, what happens is that they belong to a large, what is called a hive soul, HIVE, a hive soul. They are assigned to humans if you happen to have one as a pet, or you happen to have an experience with one of these living sentient beings. They're assigned to you for either compassion, or to help you assimilate a lesson, or to, as some sort of a beacon, guiding you somewhere, or to keep you on your path. Sometimes it's that they keep you on your path. They don't let you leave. They keep you on your path. They shine that beacon right on you, and they're like, nope, it's not your time. You have to keep on that path. And sometimes it's about creating a sense of purpose for you. And when I've done readings for people where they deal with, they're like, no, my dog was everything to me. It was my life. It was my child. And I understand that. And it doesn't make them any less of a being. But when we, from my understanding, the way that these sentient living beings are, they're assigned to humans to help us with our journey, to help us with our path. They are assigned to us as companions to keep us on the path, or to take us away from another path that we were going down that we shouldn't have been, or to teach us fear, or whatever it is that they're here to teach us, or to illuminate. And like working with, like when I mentioned bees before, I wrote a blog on that. When I was stung by a bee it's actually in my brainstem. I was actually stung by a bee in my brainstem. That happened when I was 8 years old. And I remember it was a freak accident. Like the fact that that part of my skull, which is the only part that it could have stung, I was swinging on some monkey bars, and I fell backwards. And we lived in the woods, so when I fell backwards, it wasn't like some grassy knoll. It was rocky, and I hit my head on a rock. But on the rock, this bee happened to be resting, and it stung my skull. All right. So you would think that that would be the end of it. No. So when my dad, my dad was a physician and anesthesiologist, and he laid me down on the couch and he said, "Can you see anything?" And I said, "Yeah, but my brain is on fire right now. My brain is on fire." And I remembered this happening. Okay. I remember it like it happened yesterday. And he said, "Well, I'm afraid to give you anything." He said, "Because you may lose consciousness. So let's just monitor you. Let's just see what's going on." And he said, I have to make sure you stay conscious. And I said, "Okay." So I said, "Why is my brain on fire? Why is it on fire? Why is it on?" And I kept asking why. And, it was weird. My entire brain felt like somebody lit a match and it was on fire, like it got activated, like it got ignited somehow. I immediately started having dreams of accidents in my family right after that. So, did my psychic ability become ignited by the sting of that bee? Did that bee start everything? You know? And was that bee there because it was a sentient being? It was sent to me to help me start me on this path? I think so, yeah, because not only was I having dreams of accidents in my family, but I they were so detailed, and they were like every single person that I dreamt about had a near death experience within 6 months of me dreaming that. So it started off with dreams. So, recently I've been having dreams of various things in the past year, but um, of other types of things. But now I remember it started when I was 8 years old. I remember this. I remember that's when I started having the dreams, because I would tell my mother and my father, "Okay, write this down. This is who I saw in the dream. This is who died. This is how they died." And they didn't actually die, but they had a near death. Each person that I dreamt about. So okay. So I dreamt my brother, my one brother who is dead now. He crossed over a couple of years ago. I dreamt that he was shot on the, I don't know. It was weird. So he's on top of this hill, and it was dark, it was scary, it was very Halloween looking. And I remember having the dream. I still remember the dream. And I remember when he got shot that he lost consciousness, and then the end of the dream. Okay. Well, it turns out that he was the first one to have the near death experience. He was driving back from a ski trip, and he was going 90 miles an hour in his Mercury Capri, with the moonroof and the whole thing. And he was coming around a bend, and it was icy. He was coming from the mountain, and he was with another guy friend, and they both went off a cliff. And I was in my first year of college at Carnegie Mellon, and I remembered that phone call because I had had that dream like less than 6 months before that. And you know, I told them, I said, "Look, write this down, even if it's stupid, even if it's crazy." So again, I go back to that beat. It was like it was the weirdest freaky thing that happened to me, but my whole brain was on fire, and I started having dreams right after that. So, did that did that bee actually set things off? Did that bee venom that entered my brain, was that the magic potion that ignited everything? Was it? It's not it's not exactly unheard of, or I was in, an old world country, where I'm living in the Himalayas or something, they wouldn't think that's weird at all, you know. So all I'm saying is that sentient beings have just as much a purpose as ensouled beings. Ensouled beings have uh, more of a it's a little more difficult because it's more complicated because you're in more of an active role. You know, the ensouled species have choices and free will choices, and you can choose not to do it. That's where ensouled species have the biggest difference, in my opinion, from sentient beings. Sentient beings are here to facilitate. And like I said, humans, whales, and dolphins are what I know to be sentient beings. And this has been through massive research and just through other readings that I've done for other people. Um, and we can go into the other animal kingdom, and those sentient beings have just as much cause to be here and to facilitate and to be companions. They are assigned to events. Like when you have a search dog that's finding uh, missing people in an avalanche, let's say, and that search dog has been assigned to sniff out humans, and to find the survivors. Well, that sentient being has a companion laced agreement with humankind. So they're part of a hive soul, which is a large number of souls from that animal kingdom, from that sector. Hive souls can be, they're usually in categories also, subcategories for hive souls. And you find that, you know, if there's an event and they need a non-human that has a specific skill, like their sense of smell or their sense of hearing is beyond ours, well, then they're assigned to us in that circumstance, in that event, in that emergency situation to help us get through. And their spirits and their essence can linger just like human spirits can, just like ensouled species. Ensouled species have that extra though, where they have a consciousness. That consciousness has a choice. You have free will choice. Whereas the sentient beings do not have as much of a choice. Okay? Let me make that distinction. The sentient beings are assigned, so they have a role to play. They have um, a, a purpose that lends itself to assist and to like if and immediately they know they have to go assist you, like they get the message is transmitted through the universe. Okay, go help that human, or go find that human that you were assigned to, and they can travel hundreds of miles to find you. And that's how that works with that. They save you from going on a wrong path or going down a wrong path, or they help you heal. They help you heal in those circumstances. So I'm going to invite questions now. I've gone through some of my stories with it, but I want to hear yours. I want to hear your questions about, what confuses you about these aspects, because it's a deeper look at, sort of the subcategories of souls versus sentient beings, and like purpose and how they all interact and mix together to create these learning situations. So If you have questions, just go ahead and submit a request and then I'll put you on. Michelle, I know you had questions earlier on how this works and you didn't understand it. Do you understand more now on how the differences with the subcategories and the, you know, and how this works? If you want to ask about your own situations, about, you know, what you've heard, what you've come across as far as like collective consciousness, you know, why do mass souls leave together in circumstances, you know, like 9/11? Let's talk about 9/11 and how that works. All right, so Michelle, are you on? Okay, I am. Hey, you. So
How are you?
I'm good. So did you understand my storytelling time? I gave you storytelling time.
Yes, I'm starting to understand. I mean, I could see the difference between the sentient and the ensouled. But you keep mentioning about the hive, and it brings me back to RJ, which was our beloved uh, Havanese that passed away. And he came from a hive. You explained that, and he's still with us. The spirit is still with us. So he's definitely sentient. He was assigned to us. For what purpose, I don't know, but we still love and miss him.
Well, I think it was to open you up to circumstances outside yourselves, you know,
Mm,
to open up past the everyday grind of what you were going through and to open you up to not looking at some of the tragedy that befell you earlier and some of the
right.
harder lessons that you went through, both of you,
Hmm.
but to look at the new path, like where the bright little lights are, the little fairy lights, you know? And
Yeah.
I,
He did bring a lot of love to us.
well, and I
Hmm.
think that that's what RJ represented as your dog. Um, you know, when did RJ pass away again? When was that?
About uh, 5 years ago, 2021, I think.
Okay. And in that time, you've come to know a greater love than you would have
Hmm.
if RJ hadn't been in your life to begin with.
That's true.
So it's still a hive soul, though, which means that they come from a larger soul and they break off to be assigned to you. And it doesn't
Right.
mean because they don't have their own individual whatever, they can pull from the collective of the hive for energy,
Hmm.
for, you know, let's say RJ was so super tired but needed to pull you out from a burning home. Okay, to give an extreme example, and
Right.
RJ was so tired, but yet RJ could pull from the hive's collective energy to pull you out and get you guys to safety. That's what I'm
Hmm.
talking about. You can pull upon the hive
Right.
for the extra energy to make that happen.
Wow.
The the knowledge, the direction, the mapping, the energy field, the grid, you know, and that's why the hive is so important, because if one element of the hive breaks off and needs to perform at peak capacity, the hive is important for that. Do you understand?
Yes. Makes sense.
And now, you know, with Rick and his love of his cats,
Yes.
you know, it's kind of the same thing where, you know, it's bringing him out of that darkness he was lining himself with.
Right.
You know,
Definitely.
he was allowing the darkness to seep into the cracks there.
Right.
And do you see how important those sentient souls are to bring you out of that haze?
Yes, they're very important, definitely.
So it's just that they're labeled differently because sentient beings don't really have a choice. They have a responsibility. They have
Right.
a creed that they follow, and they
Mhm.
have like conditioning as breaking off from the hive soul. They have a purpose, and the purpose is
Mhm.
to serve humanity in whatever way they can, to serve this earth plane in any way that they can. And um, they don't get the choice to decide to or not to. They have to.
Mhm.
Human beings and ensouled species are a different, that's a different animal altogether, because we get the choice to do it.
Right.
And many times ensouled species put it off or they decide not to, and you can change your agreements. That is your free will here. It can,
I guess that's why we're called ensouled
right.
species because we have choice of our own will.
We
Right.
have choice. We have free
Mhm.
will choice. We can
Makes sense.
we can make the choice to do it or not do it for the
Right.
betterment of the collective, or for the worsening of that collective, that same collective.
Mhm.
And this is where the multiple lessons come forward for the Akashic records when we cycle off. If we choose a
Mhm.
path that's on the darker side of things, and we swing history into a plummet situation where
Mhm.
it's plummeting, you find yourself wondering why you're still here. Like you're wondering why, well, if we're being led by something, but the thing is that it is still a choice. And we're here to help put it back together if they break it. I mean, we decided to do this. It's a difficult time in history to be living, just like it was during Revolutionary War times, just like it was during civil wars, just like it was during World War I and II. Times where you felt like, where is God in all this? And and what what is happening? Why aren't we learning from this? And like I said before, when I began this podcast, that story of my friend Sharon that gave me my crystal that I use. And she's in Ireland. I don't even know if she's still alive, to tell you the truth, because we haven't kept in touch. But the work we did, the channeling we did, was so important. Thousands of pages of channeled information, um, because we both had a need to know, and to learn and to see where we're going. Um, and it just, from what I could see, are we going down a path where there's no hope? No. It's going to be a twist of fate moment, though. It's going to be a twist of fate. And we're going to see things happening where, you say, oh, instant karma. But the thing is that instant karma has a boomerang effect. And okay, what do you do once the instant karma hits? Let's say, certain people in power right now get that instant karma and they're taken down, and we can have, you know, parades in the streets celebrating. Well, what do we do after that then? We have to learn from what happened. That's the other part of the boomerang. Okay, we have to learn from what happened. As ensouled species, we're given that choice. Do we want to make it better now? Are we done being complacent? Are we done just sitting there being lazy about it? Or are we going to do our part with trying to align energies in the proper way to make it better for the collective on the whole and not just for ourselves. Are we willing to do that? Did we sit in complacency for too long? There's always a chance to make it better. That's the way the universe works with this. You think, oh, well, once we have Armageddon, that's it. No, there's picking up the pieces afterwards. There's making it better afterwards. There's, okay, what do we do now? Okay, I'm going to help do this. And the other person says, I'm going to help do this. And we're all going to help each other survive this hellish thing that we just went through. So it's always going to be a continuance so that we can have a different perspective on how that lesson's going to play out. What's your question, Michelle?
I think, well, I think you answered it with when I brought up RJ. I didn't really have a question per se. I was just trying to understand the differences between the sentient and the ensouled. And definitely I'm understanding it a lot better now.
Well, do you understand that that one is not better than the other, that both need
They're just different.
each other. Sentient
Right,
beings
right,
need ensouled species just as much, and vice versa.
right.
So,
That was interesting.
but it helps us do what we're here to do because the ensouled species
Right,
have a couple different layers added onto it that are, you can look at it as a burden or as sort of, we're blessed with extra. We have, as ensouled species, we have a choice. We have a higher consciousness. We have a higher calling to drag this earth plane into a higher vibrational rate. That's the goal. No matter where you are in the universe, that's the goal. To drag it to a
that's right.
higher vibrational rate, to try to
Learn our lessons that we need to learn and make things better.
and try not to go through the same experiences and keep repeating the same patterns, because look at us. We're repeating the same patterns. It's like we're going to war and we're mercenaries and we're all like, doing it for the money and the success and the whatever. But let me tell you, from someone who touches and communicates with those who have crossed over, how much money you made and how much of a success you were matters nothing on the other side.
Yeah.
Nothing.
You can't take it with you.
Not only can't you take it with you, it's like it means very little, if at all.
Right, right.
And those things that we assign so much meaning to, oh, we have to get this much money and then other people will see us as successful, or we have to do this, or we have to, that's the thing. It's there as a mirror. It's mirroring these situations to you and these lessons to you, to understand that money in and of itself, and if you place that much value on something that's like so non-meaningful on the other side, let me tell you, nobody cares.
Right. I
Well,
think most of us are just trying to survive. Just
well,
to,
and
to
and
exist.
we place ourselves in these situations being born into countries where certain restrictions are, you know but if you see it from that angle, if you see it from that angle like I do from above, then you don't attach any meaning to money anymore. You just don't. That's why when I wake up in the morning, I always say I'll always have more than I need. I know I will, because I draw that towards me. I don't worry about it. I don't assign any value to it or any meaning to it. It's just I know to do the work I have to do. I'm like, hey, universe, if you want me to keep doing this, you'll make that happen. So, and I love you guys for it. And that's all I say in the morning. And
You always stay positive.
well, it's somehow, some way it always works. And that's what I'm saying.
Right.
If you go down the rabbit hole of succumbing to that fear of having or going without, you know, and there's no need to have that fear. Even if you think, oh, I'm at that door right now, like I'm losing everything, I'm telling you, it's an illusion. It's an illusion. I went from having 3 eviction notices on my apartment door before I decided to do this full time. The universe was saying, like, we need you to get in line with what you got to do now with this lifetime. And it was funny. I remember waking up that morning saying, I think it was in the month of April actually when it happened. And I woke up and I had to decide right there and then to leave the entertainment industry and working in film and television finance and that whole thing. I had to leave that. And remember I remember leaving that going, okay, so what do I want to do? What could I do every day and never tire of it? And I said, well, I'm already doing it, but I was doing it part time just for me. I was just doing these readings pretty much for me because I liked them. And I was doing them on the side. And I did it full time. So I went from 3 eviction notices to like 80,000 on the other side the next year. I mean, and I wasn't even trying. I wasn't even like, I could have cared less how much as long as I have more than I need. But the universe was saying at that point, hey, we recognize you made that decision. We recognize you finally got on your path. And I never did it for the money. I did it because it saved my sanity. So remember why you're doing something. If it's only to pay your bills or to escape being evicted or to escape, this or that because of some fear of the government, let me tell you something. If you decide because it makes you feel joyous every day, the universe will swoop in and just reward you 10 times over for that decision because you did it blind. You made a blind decision to do the right path.
Makes a lot of sense. Definitely.
I mean, does that really make sense to you? Because I
It
wanted you to
does.
hear that, especially Michelle. I wanted you to hear that.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm hearing it. I'm in a direct line from your brain to mine. Believe me, I'm getting it.
Well, and that's, I'm trying to teach as much as I can with these things because I mean, I could just go on and do things so I can get likes or I can get followers or I can get, it in the end, nobody cares. But if I can teach these things that help with the collective consciousness, well, that that right there is something that'll live on because it makes its mark. It
It's
actually
taking.
becomes,
I'm
well,
sorry. It's taking a little time, but it's sinking in on what you're saying, and
yeah.
I'm starting to understand where you're coming from with that. And it's all mindset. It's all just get out of my own head.
Well, it is, and I
Mhm.
mean, most people would be embarrassed to say they got 3 eviction notices, but I'm using it as a teaching tool. I'm telling you that happened to me,
Mhm.
and I'm
No, it's a
telling
great
you
example. Yeah.
within 1 year, when I made the decision to do something that I had joy with every single day, Like I was just looking to have more than I need. I wasn't looking for a specific amount, just enough asking for a specific amount. And it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about like, the fear of whatever the government was going to do or, the fear of something. It was about, I need to do this, and this makes me feel complete when I do it. And I was rewarded 10 times over, and I didn't even ask for that. I could care less. Even today, I don't care. I mean, I really don't care. And people say, oh, well, if you don't care, then, why don't you do your readings for free? All right, let's address that right now, right here and now. Let's just talk about it. Why do I not do my readings for free? Because number one, I would never sleep at night. I mean, I already don't sleep at night, but I would never sleep at night again because I would have that many people that would never leave me alone. Number two, it is not only my time and effort, but there's something about when you pay for it, you guys will pay attention. Versus if I give that for free, it'll come and go. You won't hold on to it so much in a personal way. That's why. I've had free readings from people like, various times in my life. And you know what? The ones I remembered were the ones where I paid and I needed to know and I needed to be engaged with that material and that information and that data. I needed to be plugged into that moment. And the way I did that was I had skin in the game. I had money on the table for it, you know? And that made it where I was engaged in it. Like I couldn't just dismiss it then. I hope that makes sense to you guys because I get that question a lot like, oh, well, like if you're meant to do this, why aren't you doing it for free? It's not because, there aren't enough hours in the day because there truly aren't if I did do that. But this is how I give back these podcasts. I try to teach as much as I can and give you guys as many tools as you can grab in your little basket there. I'm trying. I'm trying to give back what I've accrued all this way into this. So again, if you've got skin in the game and you've got money on the table, you're going to pay attention more. And I've had people say that to me. They said, look, you could have done all that for free, but because I had to pay for it, I paid attention more. I was more alert. I was more taking notes. I was right there. I was more engaged with what you were seeing. That's the reason. Not because I need to pay rent. I mean, look, guys, I mean, honestly, I have enough, and I'm fortunate enough that I could retire right now easily. I could retire and never work again. And I can't imagine a more boring life than retiring today and just doing that. I have breath until I take my last breath. I am here, no matter how much I have. So this is how I teach you guys the magic of how this works. All right, I'm done with my speech. So who else has questions for me? Anybody else have a question on just any of this? Any of the sentient and souled beings and like, something about that. I posted some information pretty much on the difference between the two so you guys could study up. So it's on my YouTube and it's on here. But the actual information is on here on Twitter X. All right. I need any additional questions from you guys. Anything else about just the collective consciousness, or what it all means here, like the higher collective, like why are we here, this type of question. Because again, it'd be great if it was just all about us all the time, but like sometimes you forget when you're going through your stuff during the day, you forget that you're part of a large collective. You forget that your events, whether they be good ones or more difficult, um, contribute to the Akashic records for the entire collective. Some are harder than others. Some are more challenging. Some are more joyous. But each of us has a different perspective to contribute once we cycle off here. And that's why we're still here. So if you want to ask a question, just submit a request and I'll put it on. And people are asking me so many times over on YouTube. Let me just say it right now. I promise, I'll start recording these over there where you guys can go for the lives over on YouTube, but I'm not going to do it until I move. Okay. And it looks like, that might be happening this year. So I will let you know as I know. Okay. As soon as I know like what my dates are for moving, like how I do things. The ones that have been here for a while know that I do something and I make it magically happen within a couple of weeks. All of a sudden I'll be in my new home. And you'll be like, "Oh my God." But I don't like to make announcements until it's actually, in the throes of, I'm packing boxes kind of thing. So again, I feel like it's going to be this year. So, um, in fact, I know it's going to be this year. Let's not feel anything. I know it's going to be this year just because I see it on my timeline. I already know. And the worst is over. That's the good news for you guys. I know we're heading into Mercury retrograde soon. Yes, the dreaded retrograde. But like I said, I was born during one and I turned out okay. Little messed up, but okay. And so the Mercury retro is going to be happening in Cancer this time. And that's all about home and family. So moving, relocating. Yeah, it's going to be that's going to be in my coffers soon. And I'm going to be able to announce on the details once I am underway. I've tried to keep a lot of my private information private, guys, and it's because I was attacked so viciously by a couple of people who just don't like other people to be happy, and I stopped announcing about all my private stuff on here for that reason. Why don't you tell us about your privately? And it's because when I did, there were a few people that are just dark and evil and decided that I didn't deserve that, and the person I was with didn't deserve that, and they had different ideas. No one controls my life except for me. No one. No one. And if those people are listening, let me tell you something. I don't care about reverse karma because your situations have already started turning. And let me tell you the darkness that is awaiting you for what you pulled. And I didn't even do it. I'm just seeing it. I'm seeing this dark cloud that's going to be hanging over your situation because you chose to go down that path. Maybe rethink that next time. And don't go after people with such a bitterness because you feel you deserve something, because you feel you're entitled to something. Everyone deserves happiness. I don't care who they are. I don't care what they've been through. Everybody deserves it. So anyway, that's my last word on that. But I will let you guys know as I know. I'm giving last call for tonight. Um, on any questions you have about the collective consciousness, about just that higher calling of ascent with the soul. I think a lot of the stories I tell are like parables, sorry, but I try to say them in a way where you remember it better if I tell you my story that relates to that. So that's why I did that. And like I said, you can have things happen and things can change within a day. Nikki, I have you on. Nikki,
Hi, Carla.
good evening. All right.
Good evening to
So,
you. What you just said was totally spot on, I feel. That was awesome. And I'm sorry stuff happened to you like that, but I do always try and think to live by karma. Not karma per se, but try to be a good person, try to be a loyal person. But
well,
I feel like if you do bad things, I don't always think if you do good things, you're going to get good karma. But if you do bad things, I really do feel it comes back and bites you.
it depends on what the bad things are. If you're doing bad things merely because you feel
Like to gain
entitled,
something. Or
yeah, you feel entitled, or you don't feel like someone else deserves it, that you deserve it more, or why them and not me. If you do it for selfish reasons, that's where it comes to bite you. And there's no reason. I had somebody asking me that earlier today. Somebody close to me was asking me, there are other mediums and other psychics out there and other channelers and other people, and like, what do you think about, what they say or whatever. And I see other psychics tearing down other mediums and other psychics and other uh, channelers and whatever on different, uh, whether it's their TikTok or Twitter or whatever. And you know what? Normally, I don't participate in that unless they come and attack me directly, and then I have to defend my space. But you know what? Like I was saying earlier with the collective, everybody's got their contribution to make to the collective consciousness once you cycle off these things. Everyone's got that contribution. So if there's a psychic or a medium or somebody out there that maybe isn't as well known as I was, or maybe didn't do TV, they went, with TikTok instead, or whatever it is, it doesn't mean that what they're seeing is wrong. It means that that's their perspective, their prism, their viewfinder. That's how they're bringing their contribution forward to the records. That's It doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means that theirs is different from yours. There's no reason to tear them down and for me to go on some sort of vengeance, you know, going after this and that psychic or this and that medium. I mean, I've seen people doing that, and unless you come to my page and you do something egregious like you're poaching all my clients or disturbing their peace of mind, and you're going to them and you're sending them DMs all the time, hey, come with us, we're half price on what that psychic charges and we know more, or whatever you're going to do. Because the loyalty with my contingent, my collective here is without, I don't have to even talk about it. These people have been with me for over 20 years. Nobody has left yet. None of the people that belong here leave. And if they do, it's because they were meant to leave and go find out more information somewhere else. I don't hold on to these people and chain them to me for the rest of eternity. They're here for as long as they need to be. But I don't go after people publicly on my page and just start tearing apart their lives like they have no purpose. Their purpose is to see it the way that they see it, the information that they need to contribute. And that has as much validity as what I'm saying, and whichever truth you gravitate to is the one that's meant for you. That's why I hear a lot of psychics now saying, and I'm kind of glad they started saying this, was, hey, if, you know, take what you need and leave the rest behind. Take
Yes.
what resonates and leave the rest behind. And that was actually a good trend that I saw happening probably in the last 6 months. And I have to say, I'm glad, because that's how it should be. It should be like a free library where everybody gets to come and pull out the books they need, you know? Nikki, what was your question?
Um, just when you're talking about higher self and stuff, um, is there things we're put here, like we're meant to learn, or um, a path kind of thing, and we keep repeating until we find that path? I guess, does that make sense? Um,
Well, I mean, that's sort of a general look at it, but what's your specific question about it? Like, why you want to know why you keep repeating the same patterns
yeah.
from lifetime to lifetime, if you do believe in reincarnation, which I happen to, because I've seen it too many times.
Oh,
Um,
I fully believe in reincarnation, and I've always had the thought that, you know, we keep coming back until we learn whatever it is we're supposed to learn. I'm not sure.
well, and the reason that you find yourself uh, repeating patterns is because it's not because you're being stubborn, but the fear that takes hold is so great with some individuals, because chances are good that you lost your life in a past life due to such a decision, you know, um, that you actually, or you lost a loved one because of a decision or something. So the fear patterns are uh, they're so ingrained, and they're in the much deeper layers of your DNA, your soul's DNA. Okay. So the reason you have to keep repeating it is because the universe, even when you do learn it, I've noticed this with the universe will throw you that lesson a couple more times just to make sure. The universe is very gracious in that regard. They will show you that same thing that tempted you before, that temptation, and they will send it a couple more times just to make sure that you've crossed over into new territory.
Wow.
That's why. And you're not being punished. That's the thing. People have the wrong idea about it. It's not a punishment. It's a realignment. Okay? That's what it is. Not a punishment. You're not being punished for something. You're realigning your. It's kind of like when you take supplements or something, like nutritional supplements, or vitamins or herbs or whatever it is, and you're trying to heal the body from within. If you don't if you don't allow it enough time to take hold within the body, you're not going to see any results with it. You're going to have the same pattern repeat within the body same with the events outside the body. You're going to have the same events recurring time and time again until the pattern dissolves by itself because the healing inside already took place. And usually the healing isn't something everybody this I want to say. Usually the healing isn't something that's overt and obvious. The healing is something that happens in a breath, in a moment you're not even thinking about it. It's usually subconscious, the healing. The healing will take place. And so many people think, oh, well, I need to pay attention and be laser focused on that healing. Well, no. The best healing happens when your body and your mind are at rest. And you're concentrating on something good, something productive, something positive, something healing in another way. Maybe you're helping to heal somebody else, even though you're in pain. I'm going to pause on that one. Maybe you're helping to heal someone else.
That makes sense.
Yeah. While you're in pain, and then all of a sudden you wake up and you're okay. It's weird how it happens with the healing and where the events just start realigning. And all of a sudden your world is okay again. And no, the other shoe is not going to drop because you finally got it. You got that you didn't have to be conscious 5 seconds. Take your hands off the wheel and let the universe take it. Just let that happen. The only thing you have to do is be present. That's the one thing. If you have to make a conscious effort at anything or be active doing something, be present, guys. Be present in the moment. Don't think that you hiding in a closet somewhere is going to make that thing happen. Be present, even if you feel like your presence has very little value at the time. Just by you being present in the situation that's uncomfortable for you. You know, you want to take care of yourself. You want to heal yourself instead. You have other things you need to do, but you took the time to help somebody else. That right there is everything. Everything. You have no idea how that's going to turn your life around. And whoever is hearing this needs to hear it. Okay, I'm done. So I need to know if anybody else has a question. Nikki, thank you.
Thanks,
Michelle,
Carla.
thank you. All right, so
Thank you, Carla.
welcome, Michelle. All right, so anybody else have a question on any of this? Any of this higher consciousness collective, you know, any of the concepts that go with this type of thing? But I think a lot of good nuggets are in this thing tonight. A lot of good nuggets for people that have stopped by or that will listen to this later that need to hear this information. I'm glad I did this tonight. So, and this wasn't even my topic. That I have to give credit to Douglas for this one because he gave me the idea for this podcast this morning. So, little shout out to my gladiator for tonight's topic because he's the one that gave it to me. So I have to give credit where credit is due. Anybody else have a question or a comment on sentient beings and soul beings? What the differences are? Something that you've always wondered about with the collective consciousness, or how you get swept up in it, or why you're here now at this time in history, all those questions. But if you have a question before I sign off, just send me a request to speak. Otherwise, lots of good stories in here tonight. I want you guys to ponder whatever you need from it and let the other stuff go for somebody else that needs to hear it. Okay. And yes, soon I'll be over at YouTube, but it'll be when I move. And I do feel that 2026, I will be moved into a new situation. Oh my God, it's going to be hellish, guys. The number of boxes that I have to pack, just the amount of clothing I have in here. You know, I could start my own little price Costco, like my little, because I have so much stuff that I was traveling with for all the different shows. So many trunks of clothes. I mean, a lot of it is brand new, you know, because they didn't know what I was going to wear for some of the things. So, like, a lot of it is brand new and never got worn. But I'll have a chance to wear it, thank God. And that'll be the end of that. But, you know, it'll be the end of an era, is what it will be when I move from here. And Los Angeles will say goodbye to me. I don't think Los Angeles will be crying over that. I think Los Angeles has its own problems. Anyway, I appreciate you guys showing up tonight, and maybe you guys learn one or two things, maybe. All right. I will talk to you guys next time. We might have a couple of the Nancy Guthrie podcasts coming in, depending upon what happens in the next couple days. But I will announce that here on Twitter and on YouTube if I have an emergency Nancy Guthrie podcast episode. I will announce it ahead of time so that you guys can get your questions in. But right now, I'm just, you know, waiting for various events to happen with that. So don't want to do too many of those. We've already done 9 of them. So we're going to keep continuing until she is found. I promise. All right. I wish you guys a good weekend. And we're almost out of June. June went really fast this time, didn't it? June went like so fast. I will talk to you guys later. Stay tuned for all the good stuff. And may the force be with you. I don't know why I just said that, but somebody needed to hear that. All right. I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.